Good morning, and what a view. What a view into a goshawk's nest.
Oh, isn't it just idyllic?
I know.
It's so
look,
cool.
You've still got it on the phone.
Yeah.
It's
It's so cool. She's sat there. She's quite a...
Oh, you can see the chick peeping.
You
Can't
can.
you? Yes, look at the base
Peeping
of the
chick.
at the base. Look at that, and some looks like some food on the side of the nest there.
Can't quite make out what it is, but
No,
they've clearly been busy.
Sun is shining in Latvia this morning. Gone the wind when we were looking at those white-tailed eagles. Those Latvian Fund for Nature cameras are really a treat. All sorts of things. Eagles, black spot as well. Do check those out on YouTube. Great way of transporting yourself around the world to enjoy the very best of its wildlife. Nothing beats a goshawk. Not too far from where we're sitting. Well, I say not too far, quite a long way from where we're sitting.
Yeah.
There is a goshawk on its nest somewhere in the woods, not this woods, but another woods just up the road. And to think that they're up there in the green, in the quiet, and then they're slipping off and doing their diabolical business out in the woods.
Diabolical business.
Diabolical business. They're avian terminators, goshawks. They can feed on just about anything they want to of an appropriate size. So they are ferocious predators. But of course, as you'll watch those chicks grow on that Latvian Fund for Nature camera, you'll see they're also, just like the peregrines we were watching at Wakefield, very delicate when they come to feeding their young. Now, look, we can't dwell too long on goshawks this morning, which is ridiculous, of course, because we've got a very, very busy broadcast for you.
Jam-packed today. Absolutely jam-packed. Brimming at the rim.
Brimming at the rims. But the thing is, it's a very special day because we're joined by no less than 3 people from London's Natural History Museum. Now, I love the museum. I've loved the museum since I was too young to spell museum. Been there countless times. I've got this sort of vague wish that some of my ashes will be scattered beneath the whale in the Grand Hall. You know, you remember The Great Escape when they were digging a tunnel and they had those little bags in their trousers for scattering the soil out in the yard? Well, basically what I'm going to get is one of my friends, Megan, to make those inside her jeans and to walk in there and then pull the cord, and my ashes will scatter past her ankles into the Great Hall on the.
Thanks.
Yeah. And they'll get hoovered up that night, of course. But it won't matter. But it's such a fantastic place, and we're really pleased that under lockdown, no less than 3 of the staff are joining us today to tell us about what's going on behind the scenes at the museum, and also a bit about their work. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah. So on to quiz, I believe. It's quite a good one today, I think.
Right, have you been practicing?
No. I can't say that. I almost showed the picture. That wouldn't be good, would it? Excuse me a minute. So this is today's contraption, which is meant to mimic a bird song. And of course, if you are well practiced in it, it really does mimic that bird call. Yeah. If you're Chris or myself, less so practiced, less so accurate. But I'm going to give it a go. Okay, have a listen to this.
Okay. You've made that.
I keep getting told off about these. I'm not sure that's any different from what I did. Oh.
No, I won't. It's a precious little. Right, it's a precious little French. Well, because it's not sounding anything like the bird. I mean, you've got to really read into this one. Think about the notes. If you think you're going to have the answer.
Very high pitched whistling.
Yes, send them in to Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and if you get that, well, I'm not.
Well done.
I'll give you a Smartie if I ever meet you.
If I was rewarded with something,
you did.
It was a glass spoon, and I used to get given a Smartie on a spoon. So
if you could remember when the Battle of Agincourt was.
Yes.
So when was the Battle of Agincourt? Hey?
1066?
No, that's Hastings. When's the Battle of Agincourt? You're not getting your Smartie. When is it? No. Agincourt. Come
17. No. 17.
No.
No. You know, we'll come back to that.
No Smartie. 14, 15.
That's what I said. That's just what I meant.
Should we move on to Emma Mitchell?
So throughout the week, we've had some amazing clips coming in from Emma Mitchell to tell us about how to get out in nature to really boost our mental health. And I have to say, today's one is no exception. It's utterly brilliant. So I'm going to hand over to Emma now.
I've come on my daily walk to a place I've never visited. It's a little dappled woodland glade full of cow parsley, birdsong and orange-tipped butterflies. I feel so much better than when I arrived a couple of minutes ago. My mental health has been rotten, and maybe yours has been too. 6, 7 weeks of lockdown, we're all feeling it. Anxiety, cabin fever, missing our pals. It's grim, and we can all feel maybe very low right now, but this kind of place can make you feel better. And it's not just because I'm surrounded by millions of specimens of my favourite plant ever. It's actually a series of neurological and physiological responses that I'm experiencing right now, and you can too, in a green place. Maybe your garden, maybe balcony, maybe a bit of waste ground near your house. Anywhere you can go for your daily walk among trees and plants is likely to make you feel better, and I'll explain why. I've been walking here for a minute or so among the cow parsley, and I've crushed some of the leaves, and there's also this delicious honeyed scent from the flowers. It's just heavenly. But wherever you walk among trees and plants, you're going to be brushing past leaves and branches. But even in the winter, you may kind of meander among grasses and other plants. They'll release oils. They're called phytoncides. It's maybe a sort of intimidating technical term, but actually it's just a group name for oils that are released by plants in response to and to fend off their own diseases, viral, bacterial and fungal. Now, when humans inhale them, a series of responses are triggered, and it's an ancient connection we have between the human systems and plant oils. Astonishing. So one of the things that is likely to happen is that your circulatory system will respond with lowered blood pressure and lowered pulse rate. Probably most of us have sort of that strung out feeling, and it's often associated with an increased pulse rate and blood pressure. So this kind of place can bring it back to normal, and you can feel a little calmer. Cortisol I've been talking about in all my films. It's a stress hormone. We release it when we feel really worried or terrified, and we've got a viral predator at the door right now. Most of us, I think, have probably got raised cortisol levels, and it can make you feel strung out, stop you sleeping, churning thoughts. This kind of place, you can measure it. Cortisol is dialed right down in many, many subjects who come for a walk for 20 minutes or so. Subjects also report feeling less anxious, and their mood is lifted when they come for a 20-minute walk among trees and plants. Now, the mechanisms aren't fully understood, but it could be a combination of things. Maybe they're looking at fractals like this beauty here, and that will make them feel calmer. But I think it's to do with wonder. So if you see a snail shell, you find one. Maybe you see some birds and there's evidence that they're feeding their babies. Maybe you see a butterfly. All of these small signs of nature can induce dopamine, small bursts of it in your mind, and that will make you feel elation, and it will send your spirits soaring like a kite. I can see cow parsley way into the distance. I feel like I'm looking at the Milky Way. It's heaven. It's like a fantastic drug, but in fact it's being made in my brain, and I'm feeling better. Give it a try. 15 or 20 minutes walking among trees and plants. You'll feel better. And now, back to Chris and Megs in the New Forest.
I always find that, just going for a walk, being surrounded by trees and plants, it just immediately lifts your mood. I mean, even just sat out here this morning, I was feeling a little bit sluggish. I was feeling a little bit,
You were, I could see that.
Yeah, thank you.
I could see you looking a bit sluggish as well as feeling it.
He's lovely, this one. But the moment you come out, it's just so glorious, and it just makes you feel so much better with the birds, so everything. So, everything that Emma says is really poignant, and it's just, I'm absolutely loving it.
It's fantastic. And in Japan, the government have invested in something called Shinrin-yoku. And Shinrin-yoku was a scheme which encouraged people to walk in green spaces in the forest. They call it forest bathing. I used to have a book about it, which I loaned to someone. I no longer have that book any longer because they didn't give it back to me. But it's worth checking out because, again, backing up what Emma says there and adding to it, if you look into Shinrin-yoku, forest bathing, you'll see that the positive advantages of being in that green space. And those chemicals that are coming out of the plants currently going into our bodies, improving our health, which is something we should all be into. Let's start with our Natural History Museum morning with none other than the marvellous Stephanie West, Dr. Stephanie West. Now, she is a biodiversity training manager at the Angela Marmont Centre at the Natural History Museum. She's a specialist in UK wildlife. I've had the privilege of working with her on a number of occasions. She also got a father who was a Vulcan pilot. Yes. He piloted Vulcan, and with a fantastic old classic car as well. And she's quite into sword fighting. So an extraordinary woman, Steph.
Amazing.
No,
I love that.
she's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You can follow her at BatGirlSteph78 on Twitter, at BatGirlSteph78. Less about the sword fighting, lots of brilliant stuff about UK biodiversity. But let's hand over to Steph to give us a little bit of an update about what's happening at the museum and how it intends to work through the lockdown period so that we can still be engaged with this fantastic institution. Steph.
As many of you all know, the Natural History Museum has been closed since the 17th of March, and during this lockdown it's been a rather strange time for the staff as much as for our visitors. This is only the 4th time in the museum's history that it's been closed, and all of the 3 previous closures were during World War II, so it really is unprecedented for us. Now, you might meet a lot of staff when you come into the museum, but you may not know there's around 1,000 members of staff across our 2 sites at South Kensington and over at Tring as well. Around 450 members of that staff working in the science teams. That's Earth Sciences, Life Sciences and our core research labs as well. So for us it's been rather a strange time adapting to how we can do our work and our research from home. I work in the Angela Marmont Centre for UK Biodiversity, which is very much about supporting the museum and our own teams and members of the public and science and natural history groups from around the country to undertake their own research as well. Now, for us, we've managed to do an awful lot of our work from online. While you might not be able to drop specimens off at our identification service, we are of course still running our electronic version of that, so you can email us with your ID inquiries. If you're searching through that old fossil collection you've been meaning to look through for ages during lockdown, or if you're busy out in the garden trying to find out what wildlife you've got living near you. So it's a really good opportunity to send us and ask our scientists questions about what you might be finding. We've also now this week just launched a new Facebook group where you can ask us questions on social media as well. So do drop in any ID inquiries you have to that. We're continuing with a lot of our other citizen science work as well. We were hoping at the end of May to run a BioBlitz from our wildlife garden. Unfortunately, of course, that's not going to happen, but we're working out how we can encourage you online to run your own garden BioBlitz from home. So there'll be more coming out on our website and on our social media channels about that soon. For me, I work in conservation research projects and also delivering what is now online training in UK natural history. So I'm really busy working away, mostly at my desk, I have to admit, but when I'm not at my desk I do run out into the garden quite a lot, and I'm really fortunate to have this space that I share with the flats around me that I can escape to even though I'm right in the heart of London. You can no doubt hear the sparrows going completely bonkers at the moment because I'm sitting too close to the bird feeder and they want to get to it, and you'll probably see behind me we are very much going for no mow May in our gardens, so I'm spending a lot of time out here surveying and trying to find out just what I have got in my little tiny wildlife garden.
Steph, great stuff, absolutely great stuff. The museum is a fantastic repository of artefacts. Obviously we know that, we go there and we enjoy looking at them, but it's also an enormous repository of skill and knowledge when it comes to the natural world. Tremendous there, and thanks Steph for that insight. And of course everyone should try and get involved with those schemes as they come to fruition, and you can follow the Natural Museum on Twitter at NHM_London, at NHM_London. Check out their website as well. There's always exciting things going on outside of the museum as well as inside. More from the Natural History Museum coming up a bit later.
Now, firstly, we have to apologise because I believe the quality of our video stream is not brilliant. We don't exactly know why. Some days it works, some days it doesn't. But Fabian,
a bit like us.
Yeah, a bit like us, exactly the same as us. And Fabian has told us to remain exactly still like a statue. So here we are trying to remain still. We'll do our best.
We're very still.
We're going to do the rest of the broadcast like this. We're not going to move a single muscle. So on to the next part. We wanted to give you a little bit of an update. Now, we touched on this on Monday, I believe, but we wanted to reiterate what's happening with South Isolated Bird Club. It has grown into a community of its own. The creativity, everything in there has just been amazing. And we want to say that that community is far from over. It's really not stopping tomorrow. What is happening tomorrow is that we're pausing our 9 a.m. live broadcasts whilst we just move over to the BBC Springwatch channels, where Chris and I will be from Tuesday at 12 p.m. you'll be able to find us there for the next few weeks. But the South West Asian Ball Club groups on Facebook and Twitter, keep sending in your videos, keep those conversations going, because they are incredible. So no, we're not stopping, we're just migrating for a little bit over to BBC Springwatch for a twist of,
twist of something slightly different, and it will be great. It will be good, because it will give us access to all sorts of things that the BBC can provide that we very obviously can't, and they can provide a lot more than we can normally. So so that's going to be really good. The other thing is that I don't know if we've posted it yet, but we've made a little video inviting you to contribute ideas as what we do with the South Isolated Bird Club next. From my point of view, it does need to evolve. It does need to go somewhere. We've got something good here. Everyone's enjoying it. Everyone's sharing, as Megan says. But we need to come up with some ideas of where it needs to go to next. And we want your ideas. It's not our club, it's your club. So tell us what you want, feed that in. Kate will be sifting through, and we'll look for consensus in there to see what we'll do next. And we'll stay in touch, obviously. We're not just going to abandon everybody for the next month. We'll definitely stay in touch. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on. So our live guest today is the one and only Lizzie Daly. She's a fantastic biologist, and she's currently isolating in Wales. She's joining us today to tell us a little bit about the biodiversity that we find in our gardens, but looking at it in a slightly different way. You're all right, Lizzie, how are you?
Good morning, both. I am very well. How are you doing in the forest there?
Good.
Yeah.
We can't move, but apart from not being able to move, we're very...
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like moving either, to be honest. It is very chilly today. But yeah, as you said, Megan, I kind of just wanted to share something which I hope gives you a bit of a different perspective on the wildlife that you are finding in your garden while we're all still in isolation. And it's really around this sense called electroreception. It's something that I really dived into for my master's research, primarily looking at it in ladybird larvae. Now, I'm sure lots of you will be seeing spiders out and about, and ladybirds right now, and bees buzzing around. But ladybird larvae for me was a bit of a focus for a while. And I tell you, ladybirds are fantastic in their adult stages, but as larvae, they are equally epic. They're covered in these really dramatic structures. Different species have different types of structures, different sizes, different distribution. And I was looking at whether the ladybird larvae use this for an sensitive sense. And what I mean by that, you may have heard of electroreception in aquatic species. It's basically the ability to detect weak electric fields in the natural environment. So you would have heard about this in sharks, but it's less known in terrestrial species. And I was kind of investigating it in the beetle family, our ladybirds, but actually this is a known thing in our bees. So bees, as they go around, they forage. You may think about, well, how does a bee forage and how does it know which flower to move to? Well, as it forages, it's using lots of floral cues. So it could be temperature, colour, humidity. But another way of them being able to see how much pollen is on there, and actually when a bee last visited, is using these electric fields and different charge, because pollen carries charge. Bees, when they fly, they carry charge as well, and that's constantly changing in the natural environment. And this helps massively with how they forage. Another one to talk about, and I'm sure you guys there absolutely love this behaviour, ballooning behaviour in spiders. One of my absolute favourite things. And actually, there's a number of groups of spiders that do exhibit this ballooning behaviour. If you don't know what it is, essentially spiders will tiptoe and release this long strand of silk. And it's a way of aerially dispersing over large distances. Incredible. You can see this in your sheet weaver spiders, your orb weaving spiders, and garden spiders even do this. So it's an amazing behaviour, and it's thought that this way of travel is all to do with this electroreception, atmospheric electric fields. Incredible, something different to think about while you're poking about your garden at the moment.
And Lizzie, I remember reading somewhere, but it was a long time ago, that spiders have been found very high up in the atmosphere, where they cast their the strand of silk behind them in order to balloon away, to disperse, or to escape from predators as well. And they've got carried away, quite literally, right up into the upper atmosphere. And the spiders that were recovered were still alive.
Yeah, it's incredible. They've been known to travel 2.5 miles high and hundreds of miles out, even out into the ocean. Even Charles Darwin talked about spiders landing on the Beagle when he was on that voyage of discovery. So yeah, travel huge distances, and it's just, I love it. The thought of flying spiders in your garden is just amazing.
It's that kind of thing that's unexpected, though, isn't it? Because you see spiders all over the place, you know, on terrestrial land all the time. You know, they're crawling over our table quite a lot. They're in Chris's hair quite a lot. They seem to be attracted to it for some reason. And you know, but the thought that they can just disperse like that over miles by just releasing themselves into the wind with this ballooning behaviour, I mean, it's just utterly incredible. It's finding those exceptional stories within the common species every day, isn't it? That's remarkable.
Absolutely, and just kind of open your mind and have that curiosity and thinking about, well, how do other species sense their environment? It will always surprise you. And if you are in your garden, you see some spiders, have a look. Whether you ever see that tiptoeing behaviour, it's very, very identifiable. You will see it on the edge of leaves or plants, and if they're about to exhibit that behaviour, you might see a spider take off.
Lizzie, thanks ever so much. You're absolutely right there. Great advice, actually, from Lizzie. Open your minds, let them be curious, look into that sort of fascination. And I always sort of say, you know, try to do it from a childlike perspective. Ask fundamental questions. I mean, I guess the fundamental question today, Lizzie, would have been, can spiders fly? The answer being, yes, they can.
Yes, they can.
They can. Lizzie, thanks ever so much for joining us. See you again soon.
Thanks,
See you
Lizzie.
soon. Bye.
Okay. It's great, isn't it? You look up into the sky, you think it's the domain of birds and migrating insects and those sorts of things, but all of those arachnids up there drifting around.
Drifting around above our heads. I love that.
Well, you would, as long as you're not arachnophobic.
Yes, then it might be. Yeah, but the spiders are great, you know. Look at the detail of them. They're fantastic, you know.
Okay, it's our next chance to visit behind the scenes at the Natural History Museum with some of the staff there. Coming up now is Ed Baker. Now, Ed has a keen interest in grasshopper stick insects and cockroaches, but also how we use technology to drive research. And he's the leader of the museum's Bioacoustica project. The Bioacoustica project is a repository of wildlife sounds and also the means of analysing those sounds. He's also been involved with inventing LED light traps for aquatic invertebrates. Again, applying that new technology to sampling methods in this case. He has been lending his keen ear to the Natural History Museum's Wildlife Garden, which is obviously in the centre of London. But Ed isn't in the centre of London. He's at his home, so he's been doing that remotely. So to tell us a bit about what he's found out, here is Ed Baker.
The Urban Nature Project at the Natural History Museum is a big new study to look at how wildlife responds to a changing urban environment. So we're currently in the pilot phase, working in the museum grounds in the wildlife garden to look at how new tools such as environmental DNA and bioacoustics can help us to understand both the environment and these changes. Now, bioacoustics, which is what I work on, is traditionally done using tools such as this, microphone, handheld recorders, and these things have limits in both battery life and storage capacity available. So they don't tend to work very well for long-term studies in remote, inaccessible places, which is essentially what the wildlife garden has become to us now. So we get over these limitations by using small computers, so in this case Raspberry Pi. Combined with a sound card and microphone, we can record the sounds in the garden, upload them to the internet, and I can work on them here at home in New York. It's also quite an interesting time to be studying bioacoustics in central London. There's fewer cars, fewer aeroplanes, it's a much quieter environment. So we can look at how that affects things like birdsong, when they sing, how loudly they sing. So it's quite a good time to do some interesting science. We're also looking at some generally overlooked aspects of acoustics. So we're using some tools which are not all that standard. So one of the more basic ones we have is parabolic dishes, such as this, which you might have come across before. These can be used to either listen to things which are further away than your equipment would normally allow, increasingly being used to study the nocturnal migration calls of birds, just by pointing them straight up. We also have some other things we're studying. So this is a hydrophone, so a microphone that works underwater. There's a long history of studying marine environments, whales in particular, using their acoustics. But the world of freshwater acoustics is only just starting to be understood and to be studied. We're also using tools such as this. This is a contact microphone we made ourselves. This can be used either to study sounds within soils, so things like worms moving around, or if strapped tightly to a tree, you can listen to things like beetle larvae feeding on the tree. So we can do these recordings, these listening, and start to understand what's going on in all kinds of different ecosystems in a very non-obtrusive way. So we don't have to damage the ecosystem or necessarily access the ecosystem on a regular basis to understand what's going on. So we get this data, then we send it back here to York. Some of the data coming in from the devices we have in the wildlife garden. So we have a camera attached. It's a low light camera, so the colour's a little bit off during daylight. You can have a listen to what's going on in the garden. There's a little bit of birdsong going there. And also this graph which shows us how much of the sound in the garden is produced by birds over time. So you can see that during the night there's not much going on, but there's also here clear signs of a dawn chorus. And then throughout the day there's quite a lot of things going on acoustically.
I love that. I love the fact that, well, firstly, that the staff are continuing their work. Not because they shouldn't, but because it shows just how driven they all are. And also that we're doing it in a remote way. All the way from his home, he's still generating that data, looking at birdsong in London, getting better recordings because there's been less traffic, certainly up to relatively recently, which has been truly fantastic. I love the museum.
Oh, me too. It's one of my favourite places
the museum.
on earth.
I love the museum. I've never been there and not come away inspired. And particularly if you're fortunate enough to meet the staff. And you can interact with the staff. As Steph says, at this time, you know, if you do find anything in your cupboard and you don't know what it is, you can take a photograph on your phone and send it in, and they do get back to you. I've sent them a few things over the years.
Oh no!
Yeah,
there's like letters this high. There's a whole room dedicated to your inquiries.
Some sort of smashed up, tiny little bit of a fossil about that big, you know, but they came back with the scientific name, of course.
Absolutely. So on the South Ice Skating Bird Club, of course, you have been posting so many of your fantastic photos. And there is one photographer who's been posting a lot of his images, and it has had the most amazing reaction because they are incredible photos. Now, Paul Leach has been sharing a wealth of his images, and we wanted to share a few with you today on our live stream. The first one I'd like to share is of the brown hare. Now, this is a two. They are boxing hares, which is really interesting behaviour. You can always tell the species because they have little black tips at the top of their ears. So they're really easily identified. They're often in quite open environments, and they get up to really high speeds of like 70 miles per hour.
Really?
Yeah, apparently so.
Wow.
Really fast-moving animals. Of course, they need to be because they're living in an open environment. So to evade those predators, they've got to be pretty snappy.
Pretty snappy. Nice low angle there. The foreground's a bit untidy though. I might have mown that.
Oh, it's going to get...
You know, I like my pictures really tidy, but no, it's great. It's a great action photo. Great action photo.
Absolutely. So the second photo we're going to show you is of the Dartford warbler. Have a look at this. Very distinctive bird because it's got that beady little eye there. They are resident animals, so they are here all year round. They rely on really thick gorse in the winter to keep warm, and that's how you can often spot them singing at the top.
Well, this one's in the gorse, you can see a little bit of the gorse there.
So that's a really good way of spotting them.
Nicely framed by the vegetation, all the attention on the bird's head. It's a lovely portrait of Dartford warbler. Well, in fact, we've got a couple more of his pictures to show you a bit later on as well. Yeah, we're saving the best one till last. Well, but the one we think is the best. Okay, what else we got, Beast?
Wow, we have a special video coming through. So a few weeks ago, right at the very, very beginning of our live streams, if you cast your way back to, I don't know, 3 years ago.
It feels a bit like that.
If you cast your way back to the beginning of South Isolation, when we started our live stream, we were showing amazing artwork that you'd sent in as well. And there was an amazing photograph of a painting that Mandy Baker Murray did for us. It was a painting of a barn owl, but she painted it on a feather, which is absolutely stunning. I'd never think to do that, and it's very delicate work. So when we showed that photograph, we also did a shout out to Mandy and asked her whether she'd show us exactly how she does it, and she came back with us with this clip. So have a look at this.
Hi Chris, Meg, and all you lovely people out there in Facebook land who've very kindly liked my feather picture. Thank you so much. You've asked for a little insight as to how I do this, and I'm starting off. This is the feather that I showed you yesterday. It's quite small. It's 2 feathers stuck together, actually, little small ones. And I'm going to show you on slightly bigger swan feathers the same picture. I've just got to the point with this new one. I've blocked in the rough areas of where the colours are going to go. It stands out on the feather. Okay, here goes. I've tried to set this camera up so that you can see what I'm doing. I've tried to hold it. Anyway, this is how I work. I just lay the feather down on the board on the table in front of me. I don't fix it to anything. I tend to move it around as I work as well. And I just paint very, very gently on the surface. So let's get going. I don't know if you can see this very well. It's just very gentle. I use acrylic paint primarily because it goes on and it dries really quickly, but ironically today I'm using open acrylics which actually stay wet for quite a long time, and the good thing about that is it's quite like using oil paints, and you can blend them and they stay wet, so you can mix as you go, which is really nice. But having said that, I do like it when the paint dries. And if you go wrong, you can just paint straight over the top again, which makes my life easier. It's just a constant building up of gentle layers. I'm quite an impressionistic painter. A lot of people, when they see my work, they go, "Oh, look at the detail," and it kind of freaks me out because I kind of see myself as quite splodgy. But I suppose we all see ourselves differently.
Amazing. I mean, just how, you know, patient you have to be to do that, and to delicately work the feather. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, I mean, you give it a go at home. If you know, give it a try.
Get yourself a wood pigeon.
Find a feather. Get yourself a wood pigeon.
A wood pigeon feather.
Oh yeah, a wood pigeon
Practice
feather.
on wood pigeon feathers. Like, don't go straight into,
yeah.
you know, to a resplendent quetzal tail feather.
No.
Or long-tailed duck-tail feather.
Yeah.
Save that until you've mastered the art.
Yeah, do a bit of practice first.
On a wood pigeon feather.
Poor wood pigeons, they're great. But Mandy's also done another very special painting of a rainbow owl on a feather, which you can have a look at. And she is auctioning this off today for raising funds for the NHS, of course. So you can find her at Mandy Baker Murray on South West Bird Club, where you can find more details.
Yeah, and Baker spelled
BAYKAA Murray, MURRAY.
Baker. Mandy Baker.
And Mandy with an I. M-A-N-D-I, not M-A-N-D-I.
Finally got that.
There we go. Sorry.
Finally got that out. Yeah. Okay, it's because we're rushing today, and the reason that we're rushing today and the programme's a little longer is that we've been sent so much stuff, and it's all really, really good, and we wanted to make sure that you got to see it all. So we're trying to spread it out between today and tomorrow. So one thing that you've all been wanting to see, certainly Margaret on Facebook, is Fabian and the rest of our team, because it's not just about Megan and I. There are in fact 2 other people who have been essential to putting these broadcasts out over the last 8 weeks. So we thought that we'd show you how we do it, all of the high-tech and incredibly expensive equipment that we've been using. So here's a little of behind the scenes of the team of 4 who have been making the South Isolating Bird Club broadcast each morning. Here you go.
So here we are in our little patch in the woods. This is just around the corner from the house. You can have a little look at the scenery. There's the gate that we come through and our little setup here. And Chris is prepping for this morning's broadcast. I mean, it's very high tech.
Very, very high tech, very expensive equipment. We've got one mobile phone, a sort of a dodgy selfie stick on top of a tripod. Now we do have this little microphone which plugs in, which is said to enhance the quality of the sound from the camera mic and keep the wind off a little bit.
Supposedly.
Yeah, and then obviously when we're using Skype, it really drains the battery, so we've got this in case of emergencies, which is a backup battery for the phone.
But the most important bit of equipment, Chris, your glasses.
Yeah. There we are.
So yeah, that's where we sit every morning. We've got our running order here, which is always behind the camera to keep us on track. Chris likes to make sure that the camera is always perfectly aligned. It has to be straight, doesn't it?
Has to be straight.
And we literally Skype into the wonderful Fabian, and off we go. But other than that, yeah, we've got a bit of tape. We've got our quiz of the day, the book, of course, that
Obviously,
we reference throughout the week.
We're referencing a book, then we've got Emma Mitchell's wonderful Wild Remedy, which we're talking about in our week this week.
So I think we're pretty much ready to go. Everything's in place. Got our...
Is your mind in place?
Questionable. Never can be too sure on that one. We have our running order set up. We are calling Fabian, Skyping into Fabian now. And yeah, so let's go.
Okay.
Hello, my name's Fabian and I produce the daily live shows on the Self-Isolating Bird Club here in Norwich. So essentially my job entails gathering in all of the pre-record and live content. So obviously all the pictures that you send in online and the videos and the amazing content there. That's all gathered the day before when we sit down for our little meeting at 4:30 all together on Skype to work out what we're going to say the next day. And then obviously I've got all the live stuff here, so we have a Skype call running on the day from 8:30 in the morning, and that consists of the contributors from that day, the live contributors. So that's usually Chris and Megan, obviously, and then someone like Lindsay Chapman, obviously we've got on today, who's joining us, and they'll be in a Skype call with me, so I can communicate with them there. And then their vision mixed in, so I can switch between them and adjust the audio levels and all of that kind of stuff. And then there's the live cameras. Here we've got Kate McRae's Blue Tits, but we've also had cameras from Germany, New Zealand, Bulgaria, Hungary even. And then I vision mix all of that together and adjust all the levels and you know, communicate to Chris and Megs if it's necessary about different things that's going on. And then that is sent out to another programme, which essentially beams it up onto all of Chris's social media channels for everyone to enjoy. So that's my role, and it's been great fun. But now I'll hand you over to the final film piece of insight into how this is made with Kate in Hampshire.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate, and I've got the best job of everybody. I get to watch you as a community grow over the last few weeks, which has been an actual treat. So what do? I am the collator of answers of the quiz, and so I have an apology here, and that's to Simon Watts because I missed your answer and I'm sorry. I know that I miss a few answers, but if you could see the way that stream goes, I feel like an air traffic controller every morning. It just whizzes by. So I monitor the comments and the questions and all the birthdays and try and pull those out at, you know, breakneck speed and direct line those to Chris and Megs and Lindsay when she's with us, so that they can read them out and answer all those questions for you. I arrange the presenters and schedule those guys in and do all the social media basically. So yeah, that's what I do, and that's how it's all done. So from my kingdom over to the New Forest and Chris and Megs.
So that's us. That's our little team that have been working to bring you these broadcasts and set up Self-Isolating Bird Club. And I think, you know, I speak for all four of us when we say, you know, thank you for everyone who's been tuning in and watching us. You know, the response has been incredibly overwhelming. But yeah, we had to be behind the scenes because Fabian and Kate have been working so hard on all of this as well. You see our faces every day, but of course it's important that you see theirs too. So we hope you enjoyed that little behind the scenes action clip.
Kate's been really busy contacting everyone, doing all the social media. Fabian up till midnight, and
at least,
cutting everything together, making sure it's all working. It's been, but as you see, pretty low tech.
Very low tech. You know, it's amazing what you can do on an iPhone, a laptop, and a pair of glasses and a bit of tape. It's amazing.
Bit of tape. The essential tape.
Essential tape.
Can't do anything without the tape.
You can't.
Look at this.
This is very important.
This holds the industry together. This holds the whole industry
The
together.
thing is, it does.
Gaffer tape is true, actually.
It really is true.
There isn't a cameraman or a sound man or any technician out there in the world that hasn't got a roll of that somewhere very close to them.
At all times.
The gaffer tape. Okay, let's move on to our final instalment from the Natural History Museum this morning. I'm really, really pleased that we can be joined by Professor Anjali Goswami. Now, she runs a lab, the Goswami Lab. I logged in this morning to see what they were up to at the lab, and I'm going to read. The Goswami Lab involves field work, morphometrics, evolutionary development, macroevolution, and phylogenetics, with the goal of elucidating the many complex influences of an organismal, better get that right, organismal evolution, and bridging traditional gaps in evolutionary biology. And one of the ways that they're doing that is by looking at the form and function of skulls, 3D scanning of skulls. So to tell you a little bit more about that, here is the wonderful Professor Anjali Goswami.
Hi, I'm Professor Anjali Goswami, and I'm a research leader in the Department of Life Sciences at the Natural History Museum. And the research that my lab does is to try and reconstruct the evolution of life and of biodiversity in 3 dimensions. And so what we do is we collect high-resolution 3D images of lots of different organisms, and we really focus on things like the skull of vertebrates. So this is everything from fishes to frogs and salamanders to dinosaurs and birds to mammals like ourselves. And we use tools like surface scanners and CT scanners like the ones that are in the Imaging and Analysis Center at the Natural History Museum to build big comparative data sets of the diversity of species that are alive today, but also in the deep past. And what we do is we travel around the world getting specimens from different collections and scanning them in those collections, or we bring them back to the museum and scan them there using the resources that we have there. And obviously we can't do that right now, but fortunately we have over the last few years built up a really big collection of 3D scans that we can still work with during the lockdown. And so different people in my lab are focused on different groups. So we have people that are focused on salamanders and frogs, doing some really interesting work thinking about how metamorphosis shapes the diversity of those groups. What I've been focusing on for the last few months is our mammal data set. And so we have hundreds of scans of living and fossil mammals spanning well over 50 to 60 million years, and in fact going back into the time when the dinosaurs were still around. And what we do with these 3D scans is we mathematically describe them using a process called landmarking. And so, for example, today I've been working on the very last specimen in my mammal data set, very exciting. This is a sperm whale. And what I do is I use image analysis tools to place landmarks on the skull. And those landmarks are in the same positions as the skulls that I've already analyzed for bats, elephants, living and extinct cats and dogs, a huge diversity of mammals. And then we can compare those shapes quantitatively, and we can reconstruct how those shapes have evolved over hundreds of millions of years when we look across our entire data set. And eventually what we want to do is try to understand how those shapes have evolved in response to things like extinction, to climate change, how factors like diet or environment have really shaped the diversity of life on this planet. And while we can't travel around the world to do that right now, we're still able to plug away at our analyses and our landmarking to make sure that our research is continuing to answer really the big questions of why life on this planet looks the way it does. We're also making these data available for other people, so if you want to take a look at some of the skulls that we've been analyzing, you can go to my lab's website or phenome10k.org and have a play with these skulls yourself.
You see, fantastic stuff. Skull of the day, skull of the day. Fantastic, sperm whales, all sorts of things. We've been trumped by the.
We have so been trumped.
Our little modest skull collection has been trumped by the Natural History Museum, but I can certainly live with that. And obviously, Anjali's invitation there, do go onto that site and take a look at those skulls. The way that they've been mapped is beautiful and, of course, fascinating and revealing in a scientific perspective. And another thing that I really liked about Anjali's film was the benefits of working at home, sharing your space with your pets.
Yes.
The dog lying on the bed, which is a real treat for both the dog and, of course, its human companion. Fantastic. Thank you, Anjali. And thanks to everyone from the Natural History Museum for sending in their stuff. Steph, now let's get the Batgirl Steph 78 on Twitter. Ed Baker is just Ed Baker. Well, not just Ed Baker, he's a great bloke, but his moniker is Ed Baker on Twitter. And then Anjali Goswami is ANJ and then Goswami, AMJ Goswami on Twitter. You can find them there and keep up to date with all of their work. And as I said before, the Natural History Museum itself is NHM_London. Fantastic. Thanks for all of your help.
Yeah, fantastic thing to follow.
Really love it.
So now on to our next little thing. We've got some more photos from you from Paul Leach, who's been sending his amazing wildlife photography on SI Bird Club. So the next one we are going to show you is of a little egret. You know, I really love this photograph because it's so simple. The white there, absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, this is more my sort of photo because it is simple. There's no sort of tangled vegetation or anything like that. It's plain background, nice, almost, you know, again, pretty monochrome birds, pretty much black and white colours on, of course, on that lead group. But yeah, no, I like the simplicity of it. It's definitely one of my favourites.
And our favourite photograph that he has posted on our group is of this kestrel. I mean, it is an astonishing photograph. You know, the simplicity almost looks quite kind of translucent and ghostly there, doesn't it?
It does.
It's just like, you know, it's almost like made of glass, its wings or something. It just looks, you know, I don't know.
And it's also got almost symmetry, which again, for me, the simplicity of symmetry is always really attractive, and such a beautiful bird as well, seeing it hovering up into the sky. Yeah. So thanks to Paul and all of the other photographers that have been posting the work on IBC. Keep that up, and we'll keep our critical eye. You know.
Absolutely. If you want to look at more of Paul's photographs, just put in on the search bar on South Islington Bird Club Paul Leach, and you'll see everything that he has posted, which is fabulous. So now, a very special day today, and I will let Lee explain why in a minute. But of course, we're going to be joined by Project Diaries again, Lee Gardner, to tell us a little bit about how to grow something. This one's a little bit unusual. It's a little bit exotic.
Yeah.
And potentially you'll be growing it for different reasons than you might think. So Lee Gardner is going to tell us a little bit about how to grow an avocado plant.
Hi guys, welcome to Project Diaries. Now today is my birthday! It's my birthday! Oh, now we're still on lockdown, so I can't celebrate how I usually would. So today I want to teach you how to grow an avocado tree. Now I love these. These are beautiful house plants that you can grow indoors. You don't even need a garden or a big space. You can just grow these on a windowsill. So all you need to do is get yourself an avocado and take the seeds out, and here's how to do it. So the best time to do this is when avocado's ripe enough to eat, so there's no waste. Then all you need to do is cut it down the centre and be really careful with your hands when you're doing this. Once you've done that, just give it a twist and it should separate really easy. And if the seed doesn't fall out by itself, just give it a helping hand with either a spoon or a knife, but again, be very careful. Now a lot of people don't do this part, but I say it's imperative to get the germination speed up, and it's peeling the seed. If you don't peel it, it can take months to even form a small root. But doing it this way, you can actually drop it down to a few weeks. Once you've peeled the seed, you need to look at it carefully. You should notice 3 different fault lines going from top to bottom on the seed. Now it's really important to know where these are because the next step may cause a problem. Also, this little nodule here, this is where the root's going to come from, so definitely know which way up your seed needs to go because that part needs to go into water. You'll then need 2 or 3 toothpicks and place them in really carefully, and make sure you press them into the thicker part of the body and away from the fault lines. Make sure you push them in at a 45-degree angle because this will help with watering later on. Then just get yourself a cup and make sure there's room temperature water in it. Try not to use cold water because this will stop the growing process. Once you've done that, you then just need to leave it on a really sunny, warm windowsill. Within a few weeks the seed will start to crack, and a few weeks more you'll see a root starting to form. Around 6 weeks you should start seeing the stem starting to appear. Now you don't need to change the water every day, but it's really important not to allow any algae to grow. This could be really detrimental to your plant's health. Also, replacing it with cold tap water will slow down the growth process, so always make sure that the water is room temperature. Here's an example of what your avocado tree should look like around the 12-week mark. and I think they're really cute and a great plant to have around the house. And it's as simple as that. Now after a handful of months you'll have a beautiful plant like this. Now look at how big these leaves are. Now I think these are really tropical looking and fantastic to have around the house. Now if you are growing them for fruit, it does get a lot trickier. Now they won't fruit for 10 years and some of them might not fruit at all. So there's loads of other tutorials that I've done on youtube.com/Project Diaries HQ, so go and check those out. But I just want to take this time to say I'm really proud of Chris. You trying the mushrooms are fantastic. I might have to get some tips off you because I haven't grown those yet, but hopefully everyone's growing really big tomatoes and potatoes from my other tutorials this year. But that's enough from me. Keep on rocking, stay safe in lockdown. Back to you, Chris and Megan. Take care, guys.
Happy birthday, Lee.
Happy birthday, Lee. I hope you have a fantastic day. And thank you so much for showing us over the past few weeks about how to grow all these different plants.
Yeah.
I hope so many people at home have been doing it. I haven't done it yet, but I am going to.
Remember when she was going to start doing the tomatoes? Yeah, I can barely get into the kitchen now for this enormous jungle of tomato plants that Mess has got on the go.
I honestly, I am going to do it. I am 100%. I'm committed to it.
Yeah, what I like about these things are they are so simple and so brilliantly and clearly explained. And of course, he releases one project diary a week on YouTube on a Thursday.
Yeah.
So you can check them out there on YouTube, Project Diaries. Thank you very much, Lee. Okay, we're coming to the end.
We are coming to the end. So there's a question that's just come in.
Yeah.
This one is how do you tell the sex of robins?
Difficult. Both got red breasts. Both sing in the winter time. Both hold those territories. One of the ways you can do it is that in the springtime, when they're incubating their eggs, the female spends more time incubating. And as a consequence of that, she has naked patches called brood patches on her chest. They lose the feathers, but the eggs can be in closer contact with the skin. And that part of the skin is increasingly vascularized. More blood is put into it so they can warm the eggs more effectively. So sometimes you can get a really good view of a robin in the springtime. You'll notice that if the lower part of their chest is shaggy, that's because they're missing those feathers, and that's your female robin. And that's about the only way I know of doing it without them in the hand. Obviously, if you catch the robins in the hand, it's altogether different if you're a bird ringer, for instance. But if you're just looking at them in the garden, you've got to look for the shaggy chest of the female robin to see that it might be incubated.
Tricky, very, very tricky, but that's quite a good tip to look out for. I think we should move on to quiz.
Okay, yes, the quiz. Here we go.
So we are. I have to apologise because we're so bad at demonstrating.
Right. Oh. Did anyone get that one?
3 people got that one.
3 people.
Only 3 people.
Yeah.
That's our fault because we are not very skilled at demonstrating exactly the call. We're not very good at mimicking that. So the people that got this right were all on Facebook. Gary, well done to you. You were the first person to come in with the right answer.
Probably Gary Moore.
I don't think it was. I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
Okay. That would be cheating. That would be cheating.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was another Gary. But we've got Rob and we have Jane as well. So well done to you 3 for deciphering whatever sound it was we were making.
Listen, it's the sound of a nightingale. Yes, French is rossignol. Rossignol, le rossignol, oui. It's what it says here in the instructions inside the box. It is too hard to equal its breath. Hold the bird call in the left hand and turn with thumb and forefinger the wooden part using a light pressure. By rubbing one against the other, one can reproduce the nightingale's song.
One might be able to, but we can't.
When the artisan, the French artisan, was demonstrating this, he made it sound just like a nightingale. I think that we'll give that to Gary Moore as a special present, and we'll get him to spend the next 3 or 4 months perfecting that himself.
We've got a whole box of them, haven't we?
We have got a whole box. Yeah.
So just on to a few birthdays then. So of course Lee Gardner, we already mentioned him. Happy birthday to you, Lee. Mike is 59 today. Happy birthday, Mike. Carolyn, you're 60 today. Happy birthday to you. As well as Leslie Lee Booth. So we hope all of you have a fantastic birthday. If it's not your birthday, have a great day as well. Hope that all the birthday, hope you got cake and you're able to get out and enjoy a bit of nature.
Okay, so we'll be back tomorrow at 9 o'clock with a somewhat shorter programme, but nevertheless really good. We've got Luke Massey, we've got Jane Goodall, we've got Aman Sharma, a young man in India, who sent us some very, very lovely pictures of exotic species. So we'll be back then at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. As Megan said, do remember next week from Tuesday, she and I will be on at 12 o'clock on the BBC Springwatch platform. Not just us, of course, there'll be loads of other people contributing. The wonderful Brett Westwood will be contributing. That will be good. Hannah Stipful will be offering all sorts of tips. Those cameras are going to be streaming for 24 hours a day for the best part of nearly 4 weeks, with lots of content coming to you on those platforms. And Megan and I are very pleased to be able to play a small contribution in that department. So that's 12 o'clock for us, but do check out everything else that's going on. This year's Springwatch social media is going to be epic. Loads of really good ideas. A brilliant team of people there who are going to be doing some exceptional things, and we are very excited about being a successful role in that as well, as is Fabian. So we'll tell you more about that tomorrow, and we'll see you then. Thanks for sticking with us today. We did want to get everything in.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a long programme, but we hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a good
Natural
fun
History
for us.
Museum. The Natural History Museum have
so
given
good.
us some stuff. We're so proud, honestly. It's so kind of them to have done that for us. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay. See you tomorrow.
Bye,
9 o'clock.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.